From beautiful East Tennessee in the foothills of the Smoky Mountains, you are listening to the Sherry Voluntary Show, and I do appreciate you spending your time with me. And of course, I'm Sherry Voluntary, and this is my producer extraordinaire, Daniel.
Hello, hello.
And our guest tonight is going to be a lot of fun, and I'm really looking forward to it. He's someone who's run for president many times for a long time and been a part of the political scene, and he has a wondrous man mane and this really great headgear. So I would like to welcome Vermin Supreme to the program. Thank you for coming on the show.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me, Sherry. It's really nice to be here, and like to say hello to all your viewers out there. Enjoy.
So I do appreciate you coming on the show. It's been a really interesting seeing the response from people. So what I wanted to start with is that my first question, I guess, is if you are elected, and are you still pro pony for every American citizen?
Yes, I am a minarchist.
Oh,
I do believe that the government has one small, tiny function to fulfill,
okay.
and that one tiny function to fulfill is pony distribution.
Okay.
Once again, not socialism, because they are free ponies, 100% free, cost nobody, nothing, nowhere, no how. As a matter of fact, many people ask me, Vermin, where do these free ponies come from? And sometimes I just have to break it out and explain it to them. When a boy pony meets a girl pony and they like each other, they might want to get together, especially if the girl pony is an estrus. And if that's the case, they're going to find themselves a place off in the corner of the paddock, and that boy pony is going to mount the girl pony, and it's like pony thing, it's pony penis or cock, if it, whatever you want to call it, will get hard, and he will mount it, and he will thrust it into the girl pony's vagina, and they will go at it, like two horses, and then he will ejaculate. Okay, he will ejaculate the semen fluid, and then if they're lucky and if we're all blessed, a pregnancy will occur. The sperm will meet the ovum, and cell division will occur, and a little pony will grow up into a baby pony in the uterus. And like 13 months later, boom, a free pony comes out of that girl ponies or women ponies, I guess, birth canal, pony birth canal. And that's where free ponies come from. Okay. And so people need to understand that. I mean, what does that cost you? Nothing. It's an act of love.
That's why we're an educational channel and not a political channel.
Right. It seems like a renewable resource there, the pony. Yeah. And so my follow-up to that is, instead of a pony, can I have a large cat? Because I really like cats.
Well, once again, during the transition times, everything's on the table. Okay. There will be prosthetic kits to help transform your pets into ponies during the transition times. And there will be a lot of genetic engineering going on. And yes, there will be all sorts of monstrosities and menageries and human-pony hybrid centaurs and flying winged monkeys, and a little bit like the Isle of Dr. Moreau, but better.
Hopefully better. Yeah.
A lot better. And so yes,
maybe the bronies are the first contingent, first wave of ponydom, shall we say?
Absolutely. They will be first in line for the surgical pony human hybrids.
Okay. Good to know.
And I absolutely do know the bronies themselves. They are a very interesting subculture. One of the many, many subcultures in America that essentially fall under the umbrella of nerd and geek culture. There are bronies, there are furries, there are kinko sex. There are magic players. There are Dungeon and Dragon players. There are the Comic Con nerds. There are Robert Rules of Order nerds. There are political nerds. I mean, there are nerds. There are gun nerds. There are crypto nerds. They're across the spectrum. And what the beautiful thing is that nerds are my natural audience. They are my natural fan base. And I would say that is where I will be making the most inroads, and where I will be cultivating members for the Libertarian Party and of course where we will be focusing a lot of our voter efforts.
Great.
So I just wanted to mention that.
Good.
And of course, the bronies, an interesting note is they were the subculture that pushed me from being a viral experience in 2012 when I did the glitter bombing of Randall Terry. So there was a viral moment, but then they took that moment and the images and pushed it into a meme, and they were the ones that made like drawings of me as a pony,
right?
And
Very good
they
ones
really
too.
they really helped push it in that direction. And of course, I am a meme, and I don't know if you've heard my hit single "I Am a Meme," but in that very hit single, I do give them a shout out. It goes something to the effects of, "My name is Vermin Supreme. I am a meme. I am a meme. My name is Vermin Supreme. I take my coffee with cream. I am the bronies queen." And
That's
I
great.
don't know. I think it's pretty entertaining.
Yeah,
but I digress.
I was aiming to be the Queen Brony, but I think that title has to go to you. Maybe I can be a Brony princess. But
Yes, you can. In a Supreme administration, you can be whatever the heck you want.
Good to know. Good to know. I might be a cat instead, because I love kitties. But that's a whole nother issue.
That'll be the next show.
Right, next show. So I before we go too far, and I know we're already having some fun, but I crowdsourced some of the questions for this interview, and I sort of wanted to, there were a lot of people that had some criticisms and some concerns, and I wanted to give you an opportunity to answer some of those in the way you see fit. So if you don't mind, we'll go ahead and move into like a little bit more of that portion, and then we can move on to some more
I don't want to shy away from reality.
Right.
I am a serious, once again, people say, "Oh, you're a joke," but it's a very serious joke. Right. It's a joke with a message, and it's a joke with a method. And I do know that there are very good arguments why I will be a very good candidate for the Libertarian Party, but I also understand that there are concerns and there are reservations, and quite frankly, between you and me, if I was not me, I would seriously question the wisdom of putting up a character like myself. However, since I am me, I can only push it forward. Thank you.
Great. So if you'd like to talk a little bit more about yourself before we get into that, that's fine, and give a little background into that might help inform and enlighten viewers as to why you do what you do and who you are.
Okay, well, I think that would be an opportunity to put things in a context and a perspective. And I will try and rip through my bio, hitting the most important points as quickly and efficiently as I possibly can. I'll say I've been running for office since about 87. I ran for mayor of Baltimore, Maryland. I became Vermin Supreme sometime around 1985 in the Baltimore art, weirdo, and underground music scene. I announced I was running for mayor in Baltimore, Maryland in 87, as I mentioned, and then I left Baltimore, Maryland, because I was done with Baltimore, Maryland. And the reason that I left Baltimore, Maryland, one of the main reasons, was that when I was ready to leave, the Great Peace March for Nuclear Global Disarmament rolled through. This was a march that went from Los Angeles to Washington, D.C. In the year 1985 to 86. And as they rolled into Baltimore, Maryland, at that point they were 5,000 people strong. And it contained almost every bit of equipment that they needed for infrastructure, porta potties, kitchens, water, schools, buses, city halls. They had their own mobile zip code. It was an amazing protest movement of the people, and there was approximately 5,000 people on it at that point. When I saw that at Memorial Stadium, I was essentially blown away. I was inspired. I was always a little bit of a bleeding heart, but when I saw that, I jumped on board. I went to the thrift store. I bought a clean pair of clothes and a sleeping bag and marched with them to Washington, D.C. That was where I first met anarchists, because it was also a fair amount of anarchists on it. They were trying to operate by consensus and all these things. And so I joined this group. After the Great Peace March, a small faction splintered off. They were able to buy some of the equipment. They called themselves Seeds of Peace. They had a kitchen. They had a porta potty trailer. They had a water trailer, an info trailer. And they started doing these mobile peace marches. We did one from Kings Bay, Georgia, to Cape Canaveral, where they tested the D5 missile, and I did one in Michigan, and I joined this collective, a voluntary hippie scum collective of anti-nuclear activists, and so that started getting me very political. We started going out to the test site, the nuclear test site. There was major demonstrations, thousands of people getting arrested. I mean, it was before Area 51, and it's like Area 51 could have been if they really had it together. Thousands of people breaching the barriers. And during these huge demonstrations, there was a need for peacekeeping. And back in the day, it was all nonviolent direct action, a lot of nonviolent training, and that is when I became a violent trainer, nonviolent activist, and a nonviolent direct actionist. At this same time, as I was learning these things, I also started attending the rainbow gatherings. Are you familiar with the rainbow
I
gatherings?
am.
For your viewers who are not, I'll just give a quick thumbnail. Imagine, if you will, 4,000 people sitting in concentric circles in the middle of a field. It's dinner time. All of a sudden, 5-gallon buckets appear through the woods full of food from 100 different kitchens in the woods. People get fed. Everybody gets fed. The magic hat goes around. It's a voluntary donation bucket. People kick in. That money is then counted by the banking council, a council that anybody can join, full transparency. The money goes to supply. The kitchen councils meet with supply. They give them their shopping list. They go to town. They bring back food, and they do it again over and over again. This money also buys miles of water pipe. Springs are tapped. It pays for reseeding and renaturalizing the whole place. So I started attending those things, and that is where I learned about anarchy. That is where I understood anarchy. They are an anarchistic organism. They do not rely on any sort of hierarchies. It is anything that happens is based on councils that meet and get it done. And so this was where I learned about anarchy. When people ask me what kind of anarchist you are, I'm not a left anarchist. I'm not a right anarchist. I am a rainbow anarchist. That is my answer. And so it was also where I learned to be a clown. I started attending these things and learning to be a clown. And I started to do stage work. And I started to bring that out onto the streets a little bit. And while claiming I was running for president at these demonstrations. So I started to meet people nationally. That was my first national base, if you will. After a few years attending these gatherings, I also learned that one of the functions that we provide, a very important one, is security. And so I started bringing security to the forefront. And I started bringing my clowning into security. Essentially, it's glorified camp counseling. And one of the things that we do is we provide escorts to the cops and escorts to the media. And so to keep them out of trouble and to keep the hippies out of their faces and to warn the hippies that the cops are coming. So they put away their drugs and stuff. And so I would spend like 8 hours a day or 10 hours a day walking with like half a dozen Alabama state troopers or, state cops or the incident command team. The National Forest Service spends $1 million a year up to put together a serious force that's specifically targeted against this free assembly in the woods. The U.S. government has been battling for permits for years. It's gone up to the Supreme Court. It is a temporary autonomous zone. It is a free assembly, and I recommend it to anyone. It's not a utopia, but it's an amazing look at what things could be. Just one of the many possibilities. And so when I started doing all these cop walks and bringing in my clowning into the cop walks, I was able to feel very confident and then be able to bring that out into the streets and riot world, where I was able to find this skill, where I was able to cop wrangle a little bit, if you will, where I learned this opportunity that because between the cops and the protesters, there is a vacuum. And anything could happen there. Anything could fill it. A cop could do something stupid. A protester could do something stupid. But I discovered that if I walked into that space between the opposing factions, that using my bullhorn, a calm voice, and jokes, and serious information, and deconstructing the situation, because after attending enough of these events, I had a pretty clear idea of the script, if you will, how these things play out and where they go and what to look for and, how to read them. And so I would use this to my advantage. I mean, I would know for a fact that I would bank on the fact that the cops aren't going to attack unless their CO tells them.
Right.
And so you keep an eye out for that. And until then, that phalanx of riot cops are a captive audience. And so I would read excerpts from crowd control manuals to them. I would reaffirm the people's right of assembly. I would make sure that the people understood that they had a right to assemble, and that I expected very high professional standards from my occupation forces that were there to control me. And so I would make these connections, and tell them, like, listen, if your command CEO orders you to come at me swinging, pull your punches, please. Just don't get all crazy and shit. And so I'd be dehumanizing. I mean, I would be rehumanizing the protesters and the cop's eyes, and vice versa, and found that I could actually alter reality. Right. And break tension with cheap jokes about, like, imagining the cops naked or telling the cops to come out with their pants down and their hands up because I had them surrounded. And so there was that. And of course, this is where I suppose I started running with, or interference with, the anarchist bloc. Because, at many of these events, the anti-authoritarian anarchist blocs, noted by their black flag of anarchy or their red and black flag of anarcho-commos or whatever. But whenever I was at this demonstration and I was in this role with my skills as a peacekeeper, de-escalator, diffuser, whenever I saw that type of crowd, I immediately knew that there was going to, well, if not be some trouble, I knew that the anti-authoritarians were going to confront authority. That's what I knew. Maybe they might engage in some sort of symbolic property destruction or what have you, but I knew for sure that there was likely to be conflict, and they will be confronting authority. And so I would often run interference for them. Mm-hmm. Now, I will say this, I've never, I believe that libertarians are indeed genuinely anti-authoritarian in nature, and I believe that they are against authority. But on the streets, I've never seen a yellow and black bloc. I've never seen groups of libertarians, ready to confront the state in a direct fashion in the streets. Mm-hmm. And so by default, I would certainly be running with the red and black. Okay. So that would be my association with that. And so in the meantime, during all of this mess, I started going to the New Hampshire primary, and I started running for president, and started capitalizing on that small state's first in the nation status. And it's crazy up there. It's going to be crazy up there in a few weeks. Every damn last candidate running for president shows up there. They all have campaign headquarters. They all have campaign buses. They all have campaign staffs. They all have events, and that last week or two, they are everywhere. And the media comes from around the world. If anybody wants to go and make a splash and take advantage of some serious media potential, all you have to do is show up with something creative. And so that is sort of how I fell into this thing that I do.
Okay.
I found this very small niche, and it's running for president. And so as such, I was able to exploit the fuck out of it by using these simple, elegant devices. Wearing a boot on your head. What could be more simple? And yet it's elegant, and it has a certain magic and resonance that has allowed me to amplify my voice millions of times, reach millions of people, and just maximize my First Amendment rights.
Great.
So if I can jump, and I'd like to continue, if I may.
Before we do that, we need to take a quick break, and we will be right back.
Okay, we'll jump back up into the New Hampshire primary. A few quick things about. Wait.
Okay. Are you going to switch?
Just go ahead.
Okay. Well, let's see here. You can see this and other great shows like The Gold Standard with Alan Mosley and Godarchy with host Mike Meharry, as well as Sports Ball and my other show, Postcards from Somalia, on Little L Productions site, which is littlel.com.
littlelproductions.com.
Oh, littlelproductions.com. Guess I should know that. All right. Okay, Vermin, you can continue on about the New Hampshire primary.
I'm back. Thank you very much. And so it was up in New Hampshire in 2008 when when I first started meeting libertarians, quite frankly. And up to that point, I had my preconceived notions, and they weren't necessarily flattering. I think I fell into the tropes that libertarians were selfish and didn't care about poor people and all of those things. But yet, in 2008, I started meeting libertarians, and it was the Ron Paul campaign. And so I started being on the streets with his activists, the original Tea Parties. And we totally screwed with the Frank Luntz event. He was doing one of his polls, and he was having the people spin the dials. And me and the Tea Party, Ron Paul Tea Party, we were outside and we're banging on the windows and we were yelling through. And every time we would, the needles would go crazy. And so that's when I started meeting those folks, libertarians. 2012 was the Occupy the primary. That was the year of the Occupy, and because New Hampshire is such a small state, there are activists from the left and from the right and from the libertarians. And in 2012, they all know each other because it's a small place, and they know. Sure. So we had the Free State Project, which was coming into its own at that point, and we had the Occupiers come out, and then I would be there, and they were both fans of mine and both supporters, and I was almost this little bit of a bridge between the sides. And there was Newt Gingrich. He would roll in, and there was the Free Staters, there was the Occupiers, and we just gave everybody hell, maybe for different reasons, but we were uniting to screw it with a state, if you will. And so that's where I started to. And also in 2012, also was my campaign headquarters was at a woman, Chris's house. We had rented out this space, and she had had an accident. She had become paralyzed, and the entire libertarian community reached out to her, and they helped her in her time of need, and they helped her get what she needed, and they helped get her and to help herself create the job that she runs to this day, help welcoming people to the Free State. I was starting to learn. I was learning. Once again, I mean, my previous negative opinions on libertarianism were purely prejudiced. I was prejudging, and I wasn't basing it on the facts. And so I had this wonderful opportunity to grow in that world. And then 2016 rolled around, and Boomer Shannon from California reached out to me, wanted to do a thing together, and I ended up doing this fundraiser for SoCal with him. And then Trent Soms from the Youth Caucus reached out and invited me to the International Students for Liberty conference. Went to that in D.C. There was an amazing reception. So I went to the convention in Orlando, and half the people there loved me, and half the people hated me, and the half that loved me loved the fact that the other half hated me, and but I was given such freedom to muck around and to play with the conventions of convention.
That sort of goes to one of my questions for you, which is,
yes.
I noticed that a lot of people have this assumption, some people anyways, that you want to make a mockery of libertarianism or libertarians or the Libertarian Party, and it to what I've heard from you, it doesn't sound like that's the case. But
I disagree. I mean, I believe it's incidental. I mean, my intent is not to screw with the libertarian parties. My intent, I am putting out an offer, essentially. My candidacy is an offer that I'm putting on the table to the Libertarian Party and the delegates. The opportunity to run a campaign like this country has not seen before. A campaign that will be so over the top, so crazy, that the people will sit up and pay attention. I mean, essentially, at this point in time, the politics of respectability are gone. They don't exist for all intents and purposes. And if people are really so, if they believe in it so strong, and they're just going to put up some other suit, no offense to any of the other candidates, they can do that, and if that is their choice, they will do that. But I am offering the Libertarian Party a very stark choice between two distinct timelines.
Sure.
One timeline will be the one where I am the candidate, and it's the most funnest, most insane, wild, social media fueled campaign that draws in thousands and thousands and thousands of young people, making it seem like super, super cool, and or not.
Right.
So it's that simple, really.
Right.
And once again, my own attachment. I mean, I don't have the ambition. I'm not seeking power.
Mm-hmm.
But the people who are running my campaign, Desiree Lindsay, she reached out to me, my campaign manager, in 2018, and asked me if I was serious, if I was interested in running a serious campaign. I had to think about it, but I said yes. I mean, every other campaign up to this point, ridiculous, not real. When I was running as a Republican, I wasn't a Republican. When I was running as a Democrat, I was not a Democrat. But I am running as a libertarian, and I am a libertarian.
It certainly is a platform that gets in front of most of average America that like nothing else does. So I do. I like the use of the platform as a way to get a real message out there instead of the bullshit that a lot of, that all the other politicians are talking about. So that's the only value I see to in the political process. I'm a voluntarist. I don't vote. So I definitely, when I was involved in the party, that was the reason I wanted to have that, platform be used to put out a libertarian message. So that's really great.
Yeah. I mean, I'm an anarchist. When I was first started running, I was concerned. I was encouraging people to vote. As I've gotten older, I give less fucks.
Right.
And and so I am willing. I mean, the people that are working on my campaign, and there's dozens of them in all sorts of states, and they are convinced, and they are believers, and they are libertarians, and they believe that this is a strategy that can grow the party and can ultimately draw up 5%. Sure. And I throw out the figures. And once again, the boot's not attached to my head. I'm not always in character. I'm not always on. I'm not always disruptive. Sure. I'm a very reasonable man. I have a very reasonable offer to put on the table. And there are 3.9 million high school kids that graduate in any given year. Give me 2 of those years, 19 and 20. That's 8 million kids. Add to that the 17 plus million kids in college. Now that's a pool of 25 million potential voters. If I can get 1 out of 4, that equals 6.5 million people. That equals 5%. Right. Does not include the vast amounts of the reservoir of disgusted, disillusioned people who we might be able to re-engage into the system. Does not include the hundreds of thousands and millions of geeks and nerds who belong to all sorts of crazy little niches and subcultures who we will give the opportunity to really make a very strong statement. Yeah. And, essentially, my take is that I draw from left, I draw from right, and it'll be a wash, yeah.
I think you've probably answered one of the other questions I had for you was that, people said you support Antifa, and I guess your answer to that was that you try to act as a buffer between anyone and the violent authority. I know a lot of emphasis is placed on Antifa's violence, which maybe it should be, rightly or wrongly, as I'm not making that judgment, but we know that the establishment is violent. So,
well, yes, of course. I mean, I think from a perspective of the non-violent principle and the non-aggression principle, violence is generally wrong. But I guess some people can try and twist it and claim that they're self-defending themselves as George Bush did, proactive first strikes, right, as it were. Over the years, I've got a slightly nuanced level. I've seen violence. I've been on the receiving end of political violence. Sure. I've been on the receiving end of police violence. Not heavy, but enough. Right. Enough to understand what the reality of it. Right. And and I believe that we can only attempt to minimize it.
Yes, certainly. It's a big problem in the country. And I also did want to say,
flat out, let me say, I do not encourage violence. I do not get off on violence. And on the other hand, people get off on fantasy all the time. Oh, we're gonna boogaloo. Oh yeah, boogaloo. And I mean, okay, that's a nice little fantasy of shooting some shit up, and you got all the fucking. But no, come on, let's be realistic. I mean, I think we are seeking a voluntary society. I think we are seeking a cooperative society, a society where we obtain what we need through
Right.
voluntary
Yeah,
means.
and I did want to your point where you were saying you haven't seen the black and gold flag. Our friends down in Texas, Don't Comply, recently had their Feed the Need 7, where they feed the homeless armed against the law there, and they've been doing that for 7 years. So there are black and gold activists out there, and I think we just want to encourage
Indeed,
more of that kind of thing
indeed,
where you take back
absolutely,
freedom. So I did want to mention
absolutely.
that.
Oh yes, but give a shout out to any relevant projects for
Yeah.
sure.
That's just
Uh,
one that recently that I know of. So I'm sure there are
yeah,
others,
yeah,
but
saw that, shared it, and kudos to those open carry feeding activists. Absolutely.
right. And so another thing that um, seemed to come up a couple times, and people were really seemed to be concerned about was your involvement in the Church of Euthanasia. And I know it's controversial. And is there anything you'd like to say about that?
Well, obviously, I will claim youthful indiscretion. I think that covers it all right there. I was young. Well, but seriously, I mean, let's look at what it was and what it was
Mm-hmm.
not. I think that would be helpful.
Sure.
I mean, what it was and what I believe every participant of it understood it to be, except maybe for the ghoulish cult leader himself, um, was that it was a prank,
Right.
that it was a joke, that it was high culture jamming, that it was a culture jamming that required this backstory. I mean, it was visually aggressive in a lot of fashions. It was mentally aggressive in a lot of fashions. I mean, there was imagery being used that was there to specifically troll people, and once again, that was before the internet. That was before, it was right at the beginning of the internet, maybe, but it was real life trolling,
True.
and they, so it was a small group of performance artists trying to address
Mm-hmm.
these issues using this very, very dark, scary humor. You know, it, uh, eat a fetus for Jesus, save the planet, kill yourself, sperm-free
I
cunts
mean,
for the
if
earth.
you don't know
I mean,
that that's a joke, I don't know that there's anything you can say to someone who doesn't get that that's a joke. To if they're still upset about that, I guess you
yeah, I
just
mean,
have to
I
move
think
on because there's what are you
I
gonna do
think
with
it's
people like that?
similar to people that don't get my joke. They don't understand it's working on another level. And there was plenty of them. And the
Sure.
most successful part of that group was when we went toe to toe with the fundamentalists and the right to lifers. And going up there and presenting these, oh, that look, there's an inflatable doll on a crucifix with another baby doll coming out of its doll vagina. How horrifying! Oh, pedophile priest for life. Oh, that's So there was this, oh, they're squirting us with penis squirt pistols. So yes, I mean, it was a communication strategy.
Sure.
I think the message was, "Fuck off, you
Mm.
motherfuckers." Um, but they were also talking about overpopulation. They were talking about factory farming. We did a bit called the blindfold taste test, in which we were out in front of a supermarket purporting to give people the opportunity to tell us the difference between human flesh and animal flesh, and yeah, it was very PETA-esque in a
Yeah.
way, and it was like, but way before PETA was like using humans as meat in their demonstrations, and so it was really agitprop. Oh my goodness, we had a 15-foot penis puppet that squirted gallons of jism that fornicated with the doorway of a fertility clinic that Chrissy made up a fake right to life organization to draw in a whole bunch of other real right to life organizations, and we had like fake Christian anti-abortion protesters, and we had real nuns and priests, and he told people that Courtney Love was going to be inseminated there, and so let me say the church did an amazing job at creating layers of confusion wherever they went. We ended up on the Springer show, and we owned the heck out of that. Uh, you know,
Sounds like a Guar
there
concert, actually. So
it was very punk rock. It appealed to the splatter punk kids, and all those kids. it was, I always said it wasn't the cult that I would have made up, but they let me play with them.
Sure. And it's such
And
a great uh, to be able to get in front of people and to even challenge their ideas. Like so many people will just dismiss you and walk past, and they don't listen. Everyone's entrenched on their political side, and they're not really listening to the actual issues that other people may have, and understanding that you might not like their solutions, but people's concerns aren't generally ridiculous. And so you
yeah,
have to address those. And sometimes it takes, I think, being outrageous in order to kind of wake people out of that, hopefully. It
absolutely.
seems like maybe you've done a lot of that, because I noticed in some of the videos that I was watching, Donald Trump Jr. came out, and when he talked to you, he kind of played along. Even the politicians are sort of playing along now.
Oh, yeah. It's very interesting. I mean, you can really elicit some very interesting um, responses. I mean, Bob Dole, when I asked Bob Dole if he supported mandatory toothbrushing laws, he said, yes, as long as it's locally controlled. Perfect. When I asked Ron Paul, would he support mandatory toothbrushing? He said, yes. When I asked him how we would pay for it, he said, we'll print up lots more money. I mean, perfect. Perfect. When I asked John McCain about the mandatory toothbrushing law, he told me, "Well, yes, I have people hiding I have staff hiding in people's bathrooms to make sure they brush late at night." Crazy
He
stuff.
probably did, though.
Crazy.
Like, honestly.
Lamar Alexander told me that he had Elvis Presley imprisoned under the governor's mansion in Tennessee in '96 when he was running. I prompted him that question, and that was his scary ass response.
He's a
He took
scary
me
ass
aside
dude.
and said that in his scary, in his way. It was so
Yeah,
weird.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, the Church of Euthanasia. Yeah, their website was a horror. I don't agree with the all of it and where it went. They weren't putting out anything that wasn't publicly available anywhere else on the internet, and I don't believe that anybody should kill themselves. And I've done my part in talking a number of people out of killing themselves over the years, because I believe that come on, let's be real.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, yeah, no. Like you, I don't know if you support this. I imagine that you do. That I believe that a person has a right to take their own life if they choose, but I want them to be in their right mind when they do it.
100%.
So
Absolutely.
I certainly don't want people doing it because they feel like they're worthless, or there's no life
Absolutely no.
or future for them. I want them to do it if they feel like, they're dying of some terminal illness or whatever. But
Absolutely no.
yeah, so
Absolutely.
as much as we can
You
make
know,
light of
that,
that
that's
stuff,
why
yeah, I think it's important.
I think they could have focused more on that, and that should have been more of a focus. But obviously, it was about being
Sure.
sensational and sensationalizing the whole movie.
And
So
sometimes we hit and sometimes we miss. I mean, that's the way I look
sure,
at it is, people are going to make mistakes. And if we never allow people to move on from those past mistakes or past, beliefs that we used to have. I've only been an anarchist for probably 4 or 5 years now. And I've grown a lot as I've, been involved with other anarchists and things. So I think we have to allow people that room to grow, which maybe we don't always do so much
absolutely.
in
I mean, it seems that
our sphere.
people's opinions are often changing, and based on information or misinformation or
Right.
fake information, or how things mesh. I mean, when I came upon the Libertarian Party platform, I started reading it, and I started really rocking it. I started really understanding it. I mean, I realized that I agreed with just so much of it, and oh, it's against foreign intervention. I'm against that. It's against the death penalty. Oh, I'm against that. It supports the right of the individual. Well, I support that. It's against the government taking your shit. I agree with that. I mean, there's just so much there that just beautifully dovetailed
Mm.
with all my rainbow left anarchist understandings of our relation to the state. And I believe that's and I've been blessed. And once again, my audience is from the far right to the far left. I mean, it really is. Because when I went viral in 2012, because it was perceived to be a nonpartisan statement, it was enjoyed by people from across the political spectrum. I was not attacking a party. I was not
Mm-hmm.
attacking a politician. I was commenting on the whole frickin'
Right.
system, and because of that, I've been able to develop bases just across. And if you belong to any of those subcultures, ultimately, if you're into Comic Con or whatever, you're going to find a very wide spectrum of political beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially, they're not that noticeable because that is not the focus of the thing. I mean, if you're a furry, it's all about yiffing. But then all of a sudden, somebody shows up in some sort of Nazi-related furry thing, and it's like, oh my god! And so you just don't know. But I've always looked at it like, people are people. You may not agree with them, but god damn it, I mean, they are our cousins and our uncles, and people that we're going to have sit down and have Thanksgiving dinner with. These are people we have to live with.
Right.
I mean, we have to get along.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think our main focus ultimately needs to be anti-authoritarian.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's clear our terms. I mean, libertarians are inherently against fascism,
Yeah.
but don't say anti-fascist. That's why I'm trying to form a group called AGFA. It means against fascism. It's an organization that I believe libertarians can really fully embrace.
Right. Along those lines, one of the things that some people had sort of accused you of was a tactic that, a lot of people in politics use, and that is that, we call someone a name in order to just kind of put them in a box and dismiss them. So, the term racist is thrown around a lot, Nazis thrown around a lot, things like that, to just kind of dismiss, like we were saying, the genuine things that they're trying to say. So do you have an answer for that, or what would you like to say to that?
I think it's obviously the culture. I mean, we are in such a different way as a culture. I mean, just in the past few years, just in the past decade, the advent of the internet, the sheer dispersal of almost everything. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I think as anarchists and libertarians, we find that decentralization is very important. I mean, it's sort of the one way that we can scale it down, scale
Mm-hmm.
it back.
But you
I mean,
personally, have you used those tactics?
well, yeah, uh, yeah, yes, yes, I have. I mean, I think I know what you're getting at, having looked at those comments, and yes, I have been very impolitic on the internet. I mean, in the past, once again, I mean, it was very easy and always very tempting to jump into a controversy and
Yeah.
just brawl,
Sometimes it's so fun, it's hard to
and
stop yourself.
yeah, and Patrick, I take it back, dude. I mean, I'm sorry I said those things. They were very impolitic. They were very mean. It was a flame war. It was a one. I was flaming the dude, okay? And I was trying to, once again, I was trolling. I was flaming. I was trying to create emotional distress, and yes, that was not very nice. And I've learned a very valuable lesson. I'm not gonna. I won't do that shit again. As your nominee, I will not be trolling anybody who does not deserve that sort of bullshit.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, he called me a commie first, and I got a little butt hurt and went a little over the fucking top.
Yeah. I look, I know from personal experience, I have done the same thing before. And, sometimes I'm like, I wish I would have come back from that. But,
Oh yeah.
I really do Patrick is a personal friend of mine. And I do appreciate that on his behalf. I can't speak for him, of course, but
You know, I,
I
I
I
think I
know
think
he's a really great guy. So
he'd be extremely offended, and I don't blame them. It was poor choice. It was poor taste,
and
and I should have dropped it. And
I think it goes to show, for one, that libertarians, and as libertarians, we're all really passionate. And that's a beautiful thing. That's one of the things I've noticed about so many libertarian activists is that, we can be bitches, like we can be petty bitches, but the thing is usually because we're really passionate about our positions, and I don't want people to lose sight of being passionate. but I would, love some better discourse amongst libertarians who
Oh yeah.
disagree, because I think a lot of the stuff that we get upset about is more rhetoric than anything a lot of times. And so if we could just talk these things out, and we don't have to
Sure.
agree on economics and things like that, but if we could maybe just be kinder, gentler libertarians, how about
I
that?
won't take any. No more cheap shots. No more cheap shots
Mhm.
for me. Yeah.
Well, we
You
better
know,
move into
once
some.
again, we all want to live together. We all want a voluntary, non-coercive society. I believe that we are all working towards a utopia. I believe we are all utopian in our visions. I believe we have a view of how things can be, or could be, or should be, and our activism and our political workings are about trying to bring that into reality. It's a reality that I don't think we'll ever
Mhm.
see, for many years. I don't,
Yeah.
maybe our kids will see it, maybe our grandkids. But at the present tense between, this environmental collapse and political clampdown, and, it's really very frightening times. But I think that my candidacy would give the nation some hope. It would certainly give the
Mhm.
kids some hope.
Yeah.
It would give them, something to really consider as an option to just totally goof on the state and laugh at the
Mhm.
state and delegitimize the state through the use of sheer mockery.
Right. I can tell you that that is effective, because I have a 16-year-old son who, as he identifies himself as an anarchist, without me pressuring him, but he doesn't, he gets tired of all my bullshit, right? My show stuff and everything. But I showed him just little few clips of yours on the internet, and he's like, I like this guy. I can get behind that. And he especially liked the time travel. He's like, because there's so much you could do with that. So
Oh yes, I mean
he's appreciative.
I mean, I offer adults and young people the opportunity to pretend. I let the kids know that when they grow up, they don't have to be a boring stiff.
Right.
They can still be loons. They can still be weird.
Right.
I've inspired many people to run for office across the
Mm-hmm.
country. I get a steady stream of inquiries from high school kids and college kids. I recently became famous on TikTok. I mean, I've got like 80,000. The hashtag Vermin Supreme has over 3 million hits.
Well,
And those are potential voters. I'm telling you. I mean,
yeah.
not all, but maybe they're going to lower that voting age to 16 one day. And when that
Right.
happens,
And
uh, yeah.
if nothing else, you at least get that you start to punch a hole in that respectability nonsense, because
Oh, sure.
people, they get upset with you for wearing a boot on your head and making a mockery of the process, but then they listen to the guy or gal in the suit that will feed them every lie under the sun to actually gain power, to be an authoritative ruler of their lives, and they
Absolutely.
call that okay. So I
No
think
need
that's
for to let
a
run
really
your
good.
life. I know what is best for
Right.
you.
Yeah. So, where let's just to wrap things up here, take care of some of the
Oh,
business end
please,
of
please.
things. So I hear you're going to be in Nashville this weekend.
Absolutely. It's going to be an amazing weekend of vermin supremacy all around Tennessee. We have that amazing screening on Friday night at, oh, gee, boy, I can't recall the name of the cinema.
Oh, I thought I put it
But
down too, but I didn't.
I sent it down here. Where to go? Anyway, it's on the link there. We're
Yes,
going to be
and it'll be in
screening
the show
the
notes.
yes. Do you know Rod Weber?
I was going to
Rod
ask you about that. If he, I heard he's going to be there, and
Rod Weber's going to be there. Rod
I'm
Weber was the gentleman who wrote Epstein's going to kill himself, didn't kill himself
didn't kill him.
on
Yeah,
the banana wall down in
it's
Florida.
pretty awesome.
And he and I have been collaborating for the years.
Yeah.
And he made an amazing documentary which covered the 2016 campaign. And so we will be screening that up in
Cool.
Hermitage, Tennessee at the Cineplex or something. It's on the invite page. We'll put the
Okay.
link on here, correct?
Are you going to be in
Uh,
the room at the same time? Because I have a theory that you and Rod Weber are the same people in different timelines.
Well, I think yeah, he's like he's 10 years younger, so it's conceivable. Uh, and then on Saturday we're having a libertarian specific meet and greet um, at the Margaritaville. not the restaurant part, but a private room in it.
Okay.
Where a very special announcement will be made. Little
Okay, great.
teaser, people. A very special announcement. And then on Sunday, we're going to be on that bridge, the tailgate bridge, where people go back and forth from the stadium. So if you're out there, check it out. I'd also like to promote my campaign website, https //verminsupreme2020.com. That's where you will find the campaign shopping store. You'll find the platforms that I'm proposing, and you'll also see that I link heavily to the Libertarian Party platform. Because once again, as a candidate, I feel it's only fair to put forth the platform of the party that you're running for, because that is what the party is defined by, its platform. And so as part of my campaign, yes, that Zombies and Ponies are the platform, and it will always come back to that.
Good. Good to know.
I have a new club. I've got a Vermin Supreme fan club now. Whee!
Yeah, and you guys are doing a giveaway, right?
Yes, it's a $10 a month fan club, a sustaining membership in my campaign. And yes, we've got this amazing cyber vermin ceramic. I think it's a decoration, or it's an artwork of some sort. But if you join the fan club for $10 a month, there's going to be like prizes and puzzles and like autograph this and like decoder. I don't know if we can get the decoder rings. They might be a little. I bet we could print them out though. But we'll have secret messages. We're going to have secret chats, secret exclusive content, snake meme previews, all the crap that you would expect from a fan club type of thing.
Great.
For sure.
And to get in that giveaway, you need to join by midnight tomorrow night, guys.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
And the giveaway, it'll be Thursday.
I have so many people working on my campaign. I don't even know what half of them are doing, quite frankly. It's a really amazing thing. A quick plug for my book, Pony, Blueprint for a New America. It's a book about the future long after Supreme presidency, after everybody has their ponies, zombie power fuels the nation. It's a warning from the people of the future to you, the people of your present, their past, that Vermin Supreme is a madman and must be stopped. So
that's nice of you to give us a warning, actually.
Yeah, please.
And also, there's a link that if people wanted to join the Libertarian Party, they can do so, and I will put that link in the show notes. It's lp.org.
We're having a race, I believe. Apparently, we get links, and people who join through the link that we send them, it counts for something. Because once again, I believe, and my team believes, that we have the ability to grow the party. We have been growing the party. There was one Comic Con that I did up in New Hampshire where we were able to increase the Libertarian Party membership by about like 9% in one weekend. And then we kept going and registered people online during my broadcast and during the armed pony parade that we had a few weeks back.
Awesome.
We had ponies and guns, and we were marching through the streets of Concord, New Hampshire, and we were expressing our First and Second Amendment rights really hard. And we went up to Bill Gardner's office and say, "Dude, how come the Libertarians don't have a primary being run by the state?" "I'll tell you why. Because we don't want one." Ha 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 ha. Things are happening. I feel very happy in the Libertarian Party, with the Libertarian Party. I believe that I have been welcomed by Libertarians. There are many strong arguments to be made why I will be the best candidate to choose. There are those reservations. There are those concerns. One of which, of course, is the frame. Can a serious party put up a joke candidate and not have that shit stick to them? And I believe the answer is yes. I believe it is totally in the framing. I believe it just takes the LP saying, "We are the LP. We have been around for a long time. We are a serious party. We're a party of vision." However, pivot, the duopoly electoral presidential system has become an ultimate joke. And with love and spite, here is Vermin Supreme. Fuck you.
I love it.
That's awesome.
On the joke.
Right. That's a beautiful slogan. And so with that, thank you so much for being on the show, Vermin. I really appreciate it. And I hope the event in Nashville goes wonderfully. Maybe you'll be able to attend. I'm not sure.
I certainly hope so. I certainly hope you can make it up. And thank you very much for having me on your show. and this opportunity to talk about my candidacy and things and stuff.
Right. Well, great. Thank you so much. All right, guys, that's it for us this week. If you'd like to support the Sherry Voluntary Show, you can go to patreon.com/Sherry Voluntary, and we will see you next time. Peace.